Virtue TV here again, people. Today I'm doing something slightly different. This is the first of a series I'm going to be doing. Hopefully it will carry on if I can get as many great guests as today, which is my first Elevate Truth TV interview with an individual called Jana Hurd of Jana Hurd Coaching. And her mission is to develop the bond between father and daughter. In some cases, reintroducing fathers to daughters who haven't seen their child in a long time. Why daughters? Because she was a daughter who was away from her father. Her father wasn't active in her life for a long time. Now, obviously, I'm not trying to not think about how important sons are, and hopefully very soon on the new Elevate Truth TV interview series, we will find somebody who specialises in sons to focus on the very specific needs of those little people. But for now, let's go in and see what we can learn from this first and very special interview. I hope you all enjoy it. And fathers, pay attention. Jana, one of the reasons I wanted to speak to you was because I saw two videos. I think they were from the same podcast with Jay Cruz.
Yes.
And whenever I hear people talking about subjects to do with parental alienation, the family court, stuff like this, I always give it a chance. And very often I'll hear people talk the same kind of stuff, or give the same kind of information, which is relative and valuable. But I was quite stunned with the stuff that you said in a very positive way, because some of the stuff that you said really hit me as a father who's alienated the children, very much so. And I'll tell you, one of the things that hit me very, very deeply was, for a long time, like the last time I saw my children, my daughter and my son was 5 years old and my daughter was 7 years old. And they basically just turned those ages because their birthdays are quite close together. So now my daughter is 13, my son's 11. One of the main things that, now I don't want to go too deeply into this, but I've been arrested and imprisoned for stuff to do with the family court, such as posting videos on YouTube. Now, when I was locked up, they held me on remand until I was able to prove myself innocent, basically to silence me. But when I was locked up, I was sent a couple of pictures of my children. And when I looked at the children for a second, it was like 1 minute I recognized them, and for a second I didn't recognize them because they were older children. And then as it sunk onto me that these are my children now, and I've been trying to fight to get back to those little children that I last saw, with big smiles, you hold their hands at 5 years old and stuff like this. So I had to basically say to myself, well, those little children that I last saw, they're gone now. But what really struck me with what you said was, your little girl is still there. It's still your little girl. Yeah.
Yes, she is.
And that was very, very powerful for me. So I'd like you to say, and I'd like to ask you, because obviously I asked you in a message whether you thought about the little boys as well, because it's almost like I have to learn about my son in one way and also learn about my daughter in another way. And I have a lot of worries about my daughter for very much. I could explain the reasons, but I think just by talking to you, those reasons will become apparent. So what I'd like you to just say is what you actually do, because your focus isn't with the child, is it? It's with the fathers. Yeah.
Yes. Maybe it's easier to understand if you or people that are maybe going to listen to this later, view this later, know where I actually come from. And the thing is, my parents separated. My mother actually left because she felt that that relationship and living in the same apartment, she felt that it wouldn't work. So she grabbed me and left, and I was 3 months old. So I have no memory or experience, conscious experience of living with my biological father at all.
Wow.
I never saw him on a regular basis. I know that when my mom and me were still living in Germany, we saw him like sometimes. And the thing is, my parents actually had a very amicable relationship. So there wasn't any major resentment or anything. And my mother at the time, of course, was a very progressive lady, which implied that she was feminist too. That's how things worked back then. If you were progressive, you were a feminist too. And she thought, well, I'm doing well financially. She did. So I don't need your help right now. She said, it's just fine. You don't need to send me any money. It's just good. And he said, okay, fine. So then when I was 3, she moved to Spain with me. And I don't remember seeing my dad many times till I was a grown woman. I mean, maybe it was 5 times my whole life till I was almost 30 that I can remember seeing him physically somewhere. And the relationship between them started to be very difficult when I was 7, and I was starting to understand on a more conscious level that my father wasn't really interested in me because he never really called, he never had appointments with me, he seemed not to really care. And I understood that at that age better. I mean, living without my father was a normalized situation for me, so I didn't really think much of it to an extent. But at 7, it's when, children's consciousness kind of has a shift at 7. That's why they go to school at 6 or 7. That's why there they detach a little bit from the mother and start being more their own little person. In psychology, it's actually explained very well. It's always in 7-year hoops that
Yeah.
people evolve.
Yeah.
So, and there I started to be more conscious and to feel the abandonment very, very severely. And I started to suffer from asthma, which is not a coincidence because the illnesses of the lungs very often have to do with blocks in feeling and in giving love or receiving. So I was very blocked, and I was always losing my breath and needing a lot of attention. And when my mom called my father to tell him, look, I'm not doing so well financially right now, and Diana needs a lot of attention because she's sick, I really would need you to pay some money monthly to help. He said no. He said, no, why? You said I never had to give anything. So he really cared more about his own money and priorities than about his daughter, who he was hearing of was sick.
So can I ask you, did you actually know about that at the time when he said no? When he said no, did you know?
No,
No, you didn't.
no, because my mother actually never really talked negatively about him at all.
Which is
She
very,
didn't
very
touch.
good on her part, because I wanted to
Yes.
ask you, and I didn't know what your kind of evolution into this work was. I didn't know whether your mother had alienated your father. So thank you for
No.
explaining. It seems like very much the reverse. But can I ask, when you said that you started to feel the abandonment, so even though you'd not had like day-to-day contact and much contact, you still felt a bond, did you?
I did never have a real father-daughter bond, but I guess because I was a little girl and I wanted so much to have a father, it's like I invented the bond. Well, now I know. At the time, I didn't know. I thought that was normal. But now I see that you couldn't really compare what I thought that I felt or that I wanted to have with what other girls actually have. So I had like the desire to have the father, like all girls really do. And I, of course, wanted him to pay attention, and I missed all that experience. But the thing is, when you don't really know what you're missing, you make something up in your head that could be the father that you need, but you really don't know. So it's something I made up myself that never really met any expectations. That's why later on you look for a partner and you have very weird expectations of a male partner because you made them up yourself. You never had a model that was real. that could teach you what a reliable male figure should be. So that's why many fatherless daughters struggle to be stable in relationships, or to really commit in a relationship, or misunderstand a lot of things that happen, because I never really had the bond. So it's very difficult to create it, for example, now in adulthood. It's very, very difficult to do. For me, almost impossible, I must say. But my mom always tried to remain graceful enough that she didn't share certain information that she thought didn't belong to her daughter, that was adult business. Some stuff I knew because, yeah, when there was some stuff with a lawyer to like make him pay some child support at least, I found out because I needed to go there and they needed some documents where my name was on. So, but I didn't think much of it. I thought, well, you know, it's formalities, adults do. So I really didn't think much of it. And she never really trashed him. So I didn't have a bad opinion on him or anything. I just was always confused. If he seemed to be a nice guy, the few times that I saw him, why was he never there or showing that he really cared? I mean, and kids know by your actions. So if you tell a child, a 9-year-old girl, that you're going to call her from now on every Sunday, and then you never call, and the girl sits behind the phone holding it and sits there for an hour, and your mom says, come on, it's good weather, let's go outside, and you say, no, I have to wait, and he never does. He never really realized that what he was doing with that, but that's really harmful for a kid.
Most very
So
much.
so I went through that and grew up, of course, very angry when it came to that, very angry, and with a very biased opinion on men, with the wrong outlook on men.
Can I ask you, when you, because obviously looking back now, you know you was angry, but when you was coming up, when you was growing, did you actually recognize that you was holding that anger, or was you just operating thinking, this is the normal me, this is the, yeah?
Of course, I didn't know that that was making me angry. I just knew that um, sometimes I was like with, I must say, look, I was a very easy child to raise for my mom. So I was doing good in school. I never really complained. I rarely asked for anything because I had internalized that for some reason I thought as a kid that if I asked for something or said, no, I don't really like that, I thought that I was making my mom problems. And I always viewed her as this superpower woman who was perfect and who was struggling so much, doing everything by herself for my sister and I. So I didn't say anything and I always agreed to stuff because I thought I needed to be smooth to not be a problem for the adults, which was very dysfunctional because I got used to operate like that. So I guess somehow that pain had to come out, and it rarely came out in front of people. It rarely came out anywhere. It was more when I was alone. So I self-isolated for hours sometimes because the rest was too stressful for me. Because I always saw, you know, that sometimes my mom was suffering and it was hard. And so my technique was to isolate from it. So they would like leave me alone. And when I was 16, 17, I remember that sometimes I got so angry and triggered with non-important stuff, apparently, that I'm surprised I never threw a chair out of the window or something, because I had a lot of like too much energy directed the wrong way. And my mom then said, well, you know, maybe it's just a character trait that you have and you need to learn, you know, how to guide your energy better. But I think it was really the anger that was packed in there, and I always behaved so well, so I never would let it out, actually.
And do you think you was actually trying to protect your mother as well because of what she was going through? And
Of course, I thought that she was doing so good. I knew that she always was going to take care of things, so I trusted her like almost blindly. I thought she wasn't capable even of making mistakes. Um, but I saw her suffering, being treated poorly by, for example, my sister's dad, who's a different dad. I saw how she felt powerless, how she was struggling financially. some of the years we were smaller. Um, and I saw her always being busy, not having a lot of time for herself, and still trying to really do a lot of things for us. So she was very caring. But I mean, she also has a fatherlessness problem of a different nature, but she does. So I wasn't the first generation at all to begin with. It's usually that way, that the legacy comes from way back. I mean, it's rarely you the first. So I knew later on that she couldn't really do better than she did,
Yeah.
because she didn't have anybody helping her cope with that at all. At that time, those things were, you know, kept under the rug and nobody talked about it. That was it. And she was actually a classic trauma patient. So she actually did very well for many years, till somewhere when she was older, then things started to come out. But as a child, I felt that I needed to be as good as I could to prevent her from having more problems because of me.
That is such a responsibility and a heavy weight to have on you as a child, isn't it?
Yes, it
You know,
is.
one of the things you've mentioned there is about the bond you didn't have with father, and obviously you actually said that you're unable to bond to a large degree with people in, you know, in terms of relationships and stuff like this. And what I've thought about a lot is, you know, there's, since social media has happened in terms of females, and then you mentioned feminism as well. Now, there's been different waves of feminism, and what I've kind of noticed over a period of time is that women in earlier stages of feminism seem to gain power through different aspects. So, for instance, they might want the vote. Obviously, that was part of it. They wanted to vote, they wanted independence and stuff like this. And then these things came along. And then they wanted stuff in the workplace, power equal to men in the workplace. And again, they were empowering different aspects of themselves, all very, very positive. But as time's kind of gone on, I've noticed that with social media and stuff, they seem to empower themselves with stuff that in the past may have looked somewhat degrading. For instance,
Don't even get me started. Don't even get me started with that
I don't
one.
know what you're going to say, because I don't know if you agree with what I'm saying. But for instance,
No.
you know, so okay, sexuality can be an empowering thing, but I look at some females the way it's working now, and it seems to be they use a lot of degraded images of themselves to actually empower themselves. So then the men kind of have to be on a kind of lower level, in a sense, where they're kind of I don't know, less confident, less masculine, in order to feed in and buy into that. Now,
Yes, I mean, they have wanted more emotional men that would be more with feminine traits. These are their words, not mine, that would hug their kids more. And because, you know, back then, and that was true back then, like my grandparents who were married for more than 60 years very successfully. My grandparents, of course, my grandma was at home with the kids and she did all the cooking and cleaning, all the children. She did the garden. They had vegetables that they needed to grow and everything. I mean, they were the first generation surviving World War II as kids. They needed to go from zero to everything again, building up from zero. They lost their homes, they lost their fortunes, what they had, everything. So they had, my grandma was a very hardworking housewife, mother. She learned in a convent with the nuns during the war. She learned to cook for many people, to heal wounds, to everything. So she was a superwoman in terms of providing. She knew how to grow the food, how to can it, how to preserve it, how to save it for next day. So she was the best administrator of a home, really. And of course, if my grandpa would have been left alone with the kids, he wouldn't have known what to do, because the guy was working one job during the day and one during the night to feed those kids without having anything. So of course that was normal back then, and of course it was very common for fathers who in those circumstances lost the wife due to childbirth or whatever. Then they often searched for a new wife very quickly because they needed a woman to do this job, which wasn't a job they had been taught to do. So this I perfectly understand, that in that environment it was maybe desired later in the 60s, 70s, when things were already a bit easier, people had more luxury again, more time for themselves. Once you have more time for yourself, you start thinking about stuff you didn't before, because like the bills are paid, you know, you are more comfortable. And then it was like, well, why doesn't he play more with the kids? You know, he could also read the kids a story. Yes, I understand. That still made sense to say the man doesn't have to be like a worker that is a provider and sees the kids only on the weekends. So of course it's good that he could be more involved, but then they have demanded for decades for men not to only be more involved, but be more feminine, not be sexist, not say certain words, not earn more money than her, because that would mean that she's dependent. I mean, I'm making maybe saying it in a way that is quite sarcastic, but it's
No,
actually
no,
not that
no,
far from
no.
the truth at all. So, and now that they have a whole bunch of guys who actually have to apologize when they go into a room with women, they have to like apologize because they're men, and show first of all that they're not sexist and that they love women and that they respect women, and you know that they won't use certain, I think I see this from American women. It's even worse than
Yeah.
in Europe. I mean, you wanted them to be so much more like women in a sense, and then later on you say, no, 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 but don't want you to see the kids because you're not good for that. I'm doing it. Since
That,
when? If now both of you work and both of you want to be equal, now that we have all this bunch of men who don't even know what it is maybe to be a man anymore and to feel masculine and feel great, no, now you don't want it anymore. So what's the deal? I mean, they got it all backwards,
it does
and they
really
think
seem
that
to be backwards. Because can I
they,
say,
they have.
one of the things that happened with myself in terms of my children is I, the mother of my children never really changed nappies and stuff like that. She didn't like it, and I did it all the time. And when I was
How
actually,
can you not like that? Is there actually an option to not like that when you have a child?
well, I think
I didn't know. I don't.
because I was willing to
I,
do it, because I was willing to do it, and I was quite
yeah,
to do it. I think she was able
yeah.
to say I don't like it. Now, when I was taught how to give my daughter a bath by the nurse in the hospital, because she taught me how to bathe the baby, how to put the arm and hold, you know, where the head was, and
Oh, that's so cute. That's
yeah.
so
And
beautiful.
when I was taught to do that, I used to do that all the time. Now, what the point I'm trying to make is, none of those actions that I did made me feel like I was less masculine, you know, because
That's it.
I wasn't focused on thinking, oh, this is a woman's task, or this is, you know, or I need to be more feminine in order to do that. I didn't feel like if my friends, my male friends, came in and saw me doing that, they'd think, oh, this man's a feminine man, you know, because you can do an action as a masculine person or not. It depends on how you want to do it. So I think that the need to feminize men is very, very dangerous, really. And
It is dangerous.
you know, the point I wanted to say in terms of, I mean, you very eloquently explained that. I think it's very important, especially, you know, the processes that happened back in the day. But, you know, in terms of when you was talking about bonding, where females are at now in terms of, because one of the things that women wanted that men apparently had was the idea that they could have sex freely here and there. They could freely have
Of
sex with
course, yes.
people. And that the idea of a woman doing that, she was looked at as a loose woman or lower and
Mm,
degraded. So the man would be built up for that kind of action, and the woman would be degraded for that kind of action. Now that's kind of different because women feel that they can have sex in any way.
yeah.
More power to them. But in terms of bonding, what I've been thinking is this: if you've already been in a situation where, like yourself, you've not been able to bond because of issues that happened with your father, and then as you grow, you are taking on the belief that you can have as many sexual partners as you want, then that kind of idea of pair bonding, of being bonded with one person that you might have a family with, is severely broken down. And I kind of see that happening more and more in society as younger and younger females become more and more sexualized, you know?
Yes, I mean, let's say that, and this is just one side of it. Um, the more daughters you have that grow up fatherless, the more girls you have that are at a much higher risk because of fatherlessness to engage in risky sexual behavior, to engage in sexual behavior much earlier than they actually should because of their development, and to end up pregnant as teens, to end up in abusive relationships, to end up changing partners more often because there is that non-rounded and non-stable development. And people have wanted to deny this for so many years, but all data available we have, statistics and numbers, and every serious study on the matter, no matter in what culture you do it, in which age group or in which financial environment, fatherless girls do worse when it comes to that. And they can't help it because, first, if you never saw your mom being treated respectfully by your father or even by a stepfather, maybe you're lucky and you have a wonderful stepfather who respects your mom very much and invites her to dinner and shows you then how you're supposed to be treated by men out there. If you don't have that, how do you know how to pick the good guys? So fatherless daughters end up with crappy guys, often with shiny, flashy douchebags who get a lot of attention. So they think, oh, he might be great. He must be great if people love him and give him so much attention. So they often confuse attention with love because maybe they had a dad who was kind of absent. And when they got his attention, they thought, oh, he loves me. But no, he just got his attention for some reason. It doesn't mean that he really is bonding with you or really cares. Like mine. I never saw him for multiple days as a kid because he wanted to take me home or anything. I just was on some place where he was invited to. So he saw me there. So
And was
he
the
never,
sorry.
yeah, it was the circumstance that made us be at places. So the thing is, you misunderstand that as a kid. So then you misunderstand potential boyfriends and you think, oh, because he bought me a coffee, he must care about me very much. Well, no, maybe he doesn't, and he's just being kind, or he just really wants to get involved with you, and you don't even realize that. And then you allow everything because you think that's what you're supposed to do to get that male attention, or you try so hard to get his validation when he's really not worth it because he's not interested. So the more girls you have growing up fatherless, the more girls you have that will be very unstable and unsettled when it comes to that. So, and then you have the fatherless boys, which is actually another very big problem.
Very
And
big
this is
problem.
just one side of it.
Yeah, very big problem. Now, because I was going to ask you something before,
Mm-hmm.
one of the main words that really sprung out was validation. You know,
Yeah.
looking for validation, and it's a very big area, I think, because obviously, again, bringing it back to the way a lot of females are now, they get a lot of validation from social media, from posting
Yeah.
pictures, and there's a whole rise in stuff like OnlyFans and stuff like this, where, you know, I was shocked the other day when I was looking at somebody's story, and there was a woman who was revealing a lot of her body and stuff like this, and then getting very angry and berating men for asking for the pictures for free. So she was saying this, and I was thinking, wow, that's really, you know, I thought I put it in terms of myself, and I thought to myself, okay, would I be putting pictures out there and expecting, you know, I'm not a celebrity, I'm not, you know, I'm not known in that way and stuff like that. And I thought, I would really have an ego problem to putting out pictures and expecting women to be buying pictures of me. But this woman was angry at the fact that men, or some men who mostly hitting her up in her DMs or whatever, is asking for pictures and not paying. And I thought to myself, is she the products of this ongoing need for validation for, because on one level, a woman might say to herself, I'm empowered, I'm beautiful, I can get men to give me attention, I can get them to pay for the way I look and stuff like this. But again, where does that kind of attitude come from, especially looking at the situation that you're talking about in terms of how little girls are raised,
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that, of course, when you're young and you've been blessed with external beauty, um, and I always hate to put myself as an example, because people might think, oh, but she cannot always judge things because of her personal story, because it's just hers. Yes, it's true. But when I interacted with artists so much, because I just was in that environment, and I have also learned how to draw anatomy, and I've been, in classes at university drawing anatomy at 8 o'clock in the morning with a model who was there exactly to do that. And because I was trained as a dancer and I knew how difficult it was to learn the craft, later on I was a model myself too for artists to learn the anatomy and the muscles and the bone structure. And of course, if you're naturally blessed with beauty that people are gonna admire, if you somehow did miss the attention and the praise and the validation on an emotional level as a kid, of course you might get a lot of satisfaction from that. And it may be very well intended, of course it was often not even directed from men at me. You can also have a female art teacher who says, well, but it's good because we can see your bone here so well, that's perfect, you're perfect for this job, my students can learn so well. And that's, of course, it's very nice to hear. But when you see that you can get male attention so easily suddenly without really doing anything, with something that wasn't even earned by you in some way, I mean, it's just how you were born, it hits you different when you did not have that secure emotional bond. It's like a cup. Your emotional cup wasn't filled as a child. So then you're like wanting to get that from another place. And the thing is, at a certain level, I began to realize very early on that I needed a problem with the cup that wasn't filled correctly. But I would say 9 out of 10 don't know. So they keep going with that because it seems to work. They get validation. If they later on see examples of women doing that and getting paid even for pictures, then they think, well, that's easy. I not only get praise and attention, now I get money too. That's good. And they become very entitled, because at a certain point they start expecting that reaction. And it's very dysfunctional when they are so detached from reality that they really depend on this phone saying I like and can I buy please, which is very, very sick. Actually, it's an illness in society. That's the real pandemic. So it is. So there is a problem there, and I know a bit where it comes from. So every time I see a girl, and sorry to interrupt you, I just want to finish the thought, otherwise I lose it. When I see even grown women like at 30, 40, being so needy, even with their husbands, and always needing the extra validation. And I have heard men say, look, my wife was put up fatherless, and she still has that neediness all the time, and she needs my extra validation all the time, and she needs an extra hug all the time, because in this moment she's still the little girl who just wants to be hugged.
Yeah.
But of course, no woman goes online if she's young with a nice body and says, people, what I actually need is not you to buy my pictures in bikini. I would actually like to be hugged and just to be taken for the girl that I am. But but who does that? They don't have the awareness, I guess, to know that that's their problem. And when they start seeing that this is coming from some very vulnerable place that they haven't come to terms with, some switch to therapy or seeking for help, which is great, and others go partying and drink more and do more drugs and smoke more and start numbing that with something else, because they're trying to fill the cup with something different. but it will never work.
Most definitely. So one of the things that interested me when you said that about the bonding, in terms of, because obviously what I want to come on to is how you work with fathers,
Yeah.
which is going to be very interesting to ask you about. But also, you said that, I mean, rather than saying what you said, why would you say you've not been able to then heal those wounds of not having the bond, and even into adulthood, you find it hard to bond with certain men? Do you think you
Um,
do you think you have healed some stuff, but then there's issues with men, or you haven't been able to heal those things? It's an ongoing process.
well, there is always things that will be lifelong process and learning, but I actually was very blessed with the fact that although I grew up with a wrong perception of men, because what I saw in my home was men not committing, not providing, disrespecting, just leaving, not being reliable, not being responsible. So I thought that most fathers didn't really care about their kids, so they must not suffer that much if they don't see them. That's what I thought as a kid and even as a young adult. But for some strange reason, I think it's a God-given thing, I always loved men and had many friends that were men and had good experiences with men. Although some stuff I didn't really know, but what I did was not engage overly or early into things. I actually kept them at a distance because I thought, I actually don't know. I need to know more about this because, I don't have brothers, I don't have a dad. And I somehow knew that. So I had my first boyfriend quite late and I didn't mind at all. I was a very late developer, actually. I mean, until I was 16, 17, no one looked at me because I looked like a very still underdeveloped little girl. So I was out of the picture. And that gave me a lot of years, bonus years, to think and to observe. So I observed myself that I had a daddy thing, but at the same time, I made very good friendships with guys and I had very good communication with men because they trusted me, because I wasn't a target like for a girlfriend. So they saw I was more working on here. So they liked talking to me. And then I saw that I had a talent in that and I actually loved men. I always did. I like men very much.
Okay,
So
so the experience, you went through a stage where you was angry with men, but as that kind of
yeah.
subsided, you didn't have a hatred for men, or you didn't think. Um,
Mm, I didn't have I never had the hatred, but I was raised with a too obsessive feministic culture. Also in school in Spain, it was very popular at that time. So somehow I had a view that often was very pro women, let's say, and I had a biased view of fathers. But on a private level, for me, I saw men always as a person. It's not that I saw a man and I thought, oh, but men are like this, like that, I better keep distance. No, when I met a man as a friend or as a boyfriend, I actually could engage very easily. And of course, yeah, sometimes I had the extra validation thing, or I tried too hard. I suffered very much if they abandoned me because I felt the abandonment wound always repeating itself. These
yeah,
things I had, but I didn't really have problems to have very equal, very nice relationships with men. It was like always two-sided. And when I was about 27, had failed in a few relationships, was quite sad about the fact that I still didn't have a committed relationship. I still wasn't married. I didn't have kids. And then there was this man who was a friend of my mom's. He's British also. And Carlos said to me, he actually painted me. I was a model for him too. He's a big painter and musician. And he said to me, Jana, you're angry. You have this anger because your dad didn't care about you. But you know what? Most dads like me do care. But somehow inside, he said, you're so wonderful, but sometimes I see something there where you can't deal because you're still angry and you need to work on that. Otherwise, you're going to be very miserable. He said, and I love you very much because you have so much to do still in this world. You're not even starting and you need to work on that. And it was true. And then it's when my road in personal development started, when I decided that something needed to change. Otherwise, I would be having kids and going on with the pattern. Um, and things happened. And I was about to repeat the pattern, and I almost did. and I could start reversing it once my daughter was born and I became a single mom, which was very painful because I thought, come on, I was supposed to be smarter. Why am I doing this now? But you know, I needed to do a lot of work in a very short time. And it was years later when my daughter was growing up that I realized that, well, actually, what always happens is that men, even through social media that do not know me, always ask me if I can help them. And they're always men with daughters who
Always
ask
been the
pretty
dog.
much the same questions, almost always.
Wow.
So when I started to see that my coaching was not only life coaching or the motivational stuff, that really that was my core issue. I
Wow.
had also a lady coach who's my mentor. She's a coach from Switzerland who actually specializes in finding the core issue with the coaches who know that they have something more to give, but they can't pinpoint what it is. So I did find out quite recently, if you put it like that, but it's actually what I intuitively always did, but I never knew that I could actively help and come up with a method and with a line of work that is very, I think, quite personal and unique because I didn't copy it from anybody. It's just the way I do it. Um, but it came quite late, and I always tell people it's not a joke when I say that I really love men, and men know that. That's why they trust me very, very quickly
Mm. So
because I really love you.
thank you.
Yeah.
So where are we going? Okay. I think you partly answered the question that I was going to ask, but I'm going to ask it again in a kind of way because you might expand on it.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask, at what point did you realize that some fathers really do care and want to be in the lives of their children? Because obviously you're not working with the men who don't want any contact with their children.
Mm.
You're working with the men who do. So you mentioned that you had the artistic guy there who said that to you, and that was a kind of spark.
Mm-hmm.
But it must have been like a development of actually coming into contact with men and actually seeing
Yes.
what their actual what their actual pain was. Because from my point of view, um, if somebody speaks to me now in this time about the fact that I've not seen my children in almost 6 years, they wouldn't really see much obvious pain because it's been a journey of having to deal with that and actually grow as well. But earlier in my journey, I would say that I was very broken. So, yeah, how did you start to understand that this was a area that there was a lot of really damaged fathers
Mm.
there who wanted contact?
I started seeing when I became a single mom and divorced very young, and then a single mom, which I didn't really want, but it was the only way I saw suddenly to run things in a way. Um, and I always saw that my ex-husband actually was maybe a flawed dad sometimes, but he was a very loving dad, and he would do things that would freak me out and stuff. But I thought, well, but you know, my daughter and him, they love each other so much. He will always do things differently, things that I don't understand really. But you know, they're not things that are really existential things. So just let him do, you know, they have fun together. That's the most important thing. But I saw how he also refused to pay child support of any kind, how he was also very, you know, very centered in his own stuff and often didn't see that his daughter needed him more the time he was around. Actually, now he's not anymore, sadly. Um, so so then I started seeing better that my biological father is the same way, but even much worse because he also was often he is a very childish man. He's now in his 70s and he still is often like a kid who doesn't see anything around him but himself. He still cannot understand that it's bad that he never apologized to me for not being there, for not even calling and saying, hey, how are you doing, by the way, you know. um, he doesn't see it. He just blames everyone else and says it was circumstances. So some people are just very immature for some reason, for their own upbringing sometimes too. It has a big part in it, although it's not an excuse, I guess, for adult people. Um, so I saw my father that it was very difficult to come around with him. I saw my ex-husband, who was a very loving dad, but often also didn't see that children, are not capable of seeing, well, in 2 years I'll be more there because my business will be growing. No, a child needs you now. A child doesn't care about in 2 years when she's 2. And I tried to make him understand, and I always saw it was very hard to make him understand because I was too emotionally attached. And then I started to meet in my daughter's kindergarten here in Germany, in the neighborhood where I live. I started meeting so many dads who were super committed and super close with their children. And I saw how the kids would treat the dad different than the mom because he had such a different energy than the mom did. And I saw like everything I had learned in theory confirming in real life. And I saw fathers saying that they suffered because they were divorced and the wife was very complicated with the visitation things. So I talked to more dads that were older who regretted not being with their kids more. I mean, it was in the process of raising my daughter, first almost alone, later on alone for a few years before I found my new partner, and we went to move on all three together. So now she has a wonderful stepfather who's actually a gift from the heavens. And I saw also how he related to her even without her being his child. And I saw that a man is well capable of doing many fantastic things, but she's a priority to him, which my father never really could do. And then I thought, well, if I could help all these men that are often asking me, like, oh, Jana, I know you were fatherless too. How do you think I can do this? Or what can I say to my daughter? And then I thought, well, my father is not coachable because till today he doesn't want to learn anything. But if he was coachable, what would I tell him to do? If I didn't know him at all, not judge him at all, what things would I tell him that he could do to impulse change so he can tap in his greatness and start functioning and setting things in motion?
Tap in his
So
greatness,
I thought,
you say. Tap in his greatness, you say.
yes, because men are well capable to tap into their own greatness, which is something that somehow became okay today in society to say, that to laugh at men or to disrespect them in public. But I think men actually need to stop allowing that, not by really saying anything. It's a change of internal attitude. And it's what I call tapping into your own greatness as a man and as a father.
Very, very powerful what you're saying, and I'll tell you why. I have a friend who was actually alienated from his children before I was. And when I became alienated from my children, he had a lot of stuff that he was saying to me that at the time I didn't get. Now, it so happens that he's been in contact lately. And today I sent him a message asking him how old is his son now? And also what is contact like? Because I knew that he had some contact, whereas I have no contact, virtually no contact. The contact that I have is always blocked.
I'm very sorry to hear that, by the way.
It's life at the moment, and I'll come into that. But when he sent back the message to me, obviously I'm not going to mention his name or anything like that, but the message, I read it and I didn't get back to him straight away. And he was basically saying his son speaks to him like he's the son. He said his son's very angry with him. He said, obviously, the mother has been, can't remember, paraphrasing, but said something like... Influencing. Now, all these things might have been correct that he's saying, but what I noticed was that there was an attitude there that about him that he wasn't really speaking about, and I didn't put it into those terms that you've said in terms of becoming, what do you say, powerful and your own greatness. But I think that's what I haven't got back to him yet, you see, because I was rushing to come and do this for one, and I don't like sending messages on the way, but I was thinking, if I start to try and tell him about his own internal power and what he can do to dissolve, as crazy as it sounds, to dissolve the things that he's actually talking about in here. Because when I thought about him saying that, well, your son is angry with you, well, how much do you focus on the love bond between you and your child? Or are you focusing on the
On
issue?
the anger, on the blame, on, yeah, my son is not respecting me. Yeah, but you know, many fathers have come to a point where they don't respect themselves as fathers anymore. So how do they
Very
expect
true.
the children to respect them? They cannot. Even if they're 17 or 18, they're still the little kid that thinks you were not there.
Very
And
true.
they're often very angry, and they have a lot of resentment because there are so many things that happen to fatherless kids because the father isn't there to defend them, to protect them, to have their back, and to prevent other people from mistreating them. And I know it. I was bullied in school. I had a few experiences, actually, things that happened where I knew very quickly that it was very much on the line of abuse and it wasn't normal. But somehow, as a kid, I was quite analytical. So I could somehow see the things very good from a distance and say, oh, this is not proper, this is not good, you need to leave right now. So, but I know, so I didn't get that traumatized by those things because I don't know how I did. Early on, I could process it in a very analytic way. And also, my mother had taught me about those things. So I knew what was happening. Very good on my mom, that one. Thank you, Mom. But yeah, well, she did talk a lot. Sometimes it was very annoying to me, but she also, you know, said things that made a lot of sense. Um, but there's so many things that I know people would never have tried if a father would have been there to show his presence.
Oh, very much so. I'm going to tell you one thing again, which is also going to be a video that I'm going to make. I'm not going to go too much into this subject, but it was actually a video of a person that grooms children who was talking about what he would do to groom children. And the person asking the question was focusing on the child, grooming the child. But the abuser basically said, I didn't look that much at the child. I used to look at what was around the child. I
Of
used to look at,
course.
I used to look at how they were dressed, he said. I used to look at their friends because I knew that if they had many close friends, the friends might know what was going on with the child. And he said this, he said, I always wanted to see what the father was like, where the father was, whether the father
That's
would
it.
be a threat. And I thought to myself, wow, that kind of comes back to this old idea of, you know, the masculinity and stuff like this. I believe that, you know, in order to protect your children, your partner, you have to be masculine to a degree. You can't, you know,
Of course. I mean,
you know,
and people don't want to hear this nowadays. And all these postmodern, brainwashed ladies, I feel very sorry for them. They don't understand that if they don't have a partner who can protect them and their children, if really things go wild, how are they going to maintain this thing? I lived with my daughter alone for almost 8.5 years in a small apartment. And it was like how do you call it? Not even a first floor. So people could peek into our windows if I didn't have curtains. But of course I did. But the thing is, there were things that happened to me, men trying to somehow be my friends, which always sounds very strange, you know, why you all want to be my friends? Because you know that I'm single and that you can maybe just knock on my door.
oh, of
And I
course,
had to, of
of
course, and they
course.
always try with single mothers, and
Oh,
they
listen,
sometimes said
listen,
things that were quite disrespectful, and I
men.
knew that they didn't respect me.
Oh, this is so true. Men, I'm not talking about all men, not all, but most.
No, no, no,
Yeah.
no.
Men, a woman, and this is just sadly the truth. A woman can find sexual partners anywhere, not because of a woman, but because of the nature of men. If a woman was to go on the street and hold up a banner saying "free sex here, call this number," she would be
They
inundated with
do.
calls. However, if a
Of
man was to
course.
say, you know, "free sex, call this number," so when a man sees a female who's single, a single mother as well, he thinks, "Oh yeah, she's an easy target here," you know.
Yeah,
Um, it's very, very interesting, this stuff, you know.
it is. It is.
So
And you
crazy.
know what? Just no, but just to finish the thought, because I know again I will forget. I apologize. But the thing is, that's why the statistics are so frightening when you see that fatherless kids growing up only with the mom or even with a stepdad are at such a high risk to be sexually abused and beaten.
Oh, of
And
course.
people don't want to hear that. They say, oh no, but children with mothers are all fine. No, they're not all fine. I wasn't beaten by any stepdad, but I also was bullied because many kids knew that they could do it because my mom couldn't be there 24/7.
Yeah.
There were men talking to me and wanting to touch me on the street, and they knew I didn't have a father who would come down and beat them up, or scare them away. And of course they tried, and it happens to so many little girls. I'm so thankful that I knew that I could go to my mom and tell her, and she immediately did something. But so many girls don't have the courage or the confidence to go to the mom and say, like, look, this man is very creepy, look what he did. And even things happen that, if I remember right, I didn't even tell my mom because somehow I was a bit nerdy, I guess, and I could process it, and I knew immediately it was wrong, so I knew how to do things. But those things happen way more, in much higher numbers, with kids that are fatherless, because the fathers are supposed to protect the children and they're supposed to protect the wives. So I somehow, as a single mom, had to develop a very high radar to see what people wanted, because sadly there were men who were actually nice guys who were married with kids, and our kids played together in the park. And when they already are becoming strangely closer and asking certain questions, I had to say this not even once or twice to even more than 3 guys in that period of time where I was alone with my daughter. Like, what do you really want? Who do you think I am? Like, oh, well, I thought I could visit you sometime. Really? Why do you think you can do that? Well, because, or, no, please don't do that. Well, so you see that it's wrong.
Yeah.
And then things like, oh, but I respect you so much and you're such a nice lady. Well, if you respect me that much, why do you want to put me in this position that the whole neighborhood could know that you're knocking on my door and you have a family just in the house beside? So of course people try to take advantage of situations, and it's then the feminists come and say, well, but you see, you didn't need a man to protect you, you were doing fine. It's not that I need it, it's that if I have kids, the father of the kids has the duty to protect the family, because if I'm breastfeeding a kid who's just born, who's supposed to protect me if a predator comes?
Yeah.
Who?
So can I ask
And
then?
they don't understand that you can't. It's true. It's simple. It's actually
You know,
simple if you put it that way.
it is. You're very lucky to have found a partner now, a stepfather that obviously has a bond with your daughter, and that bond,
Yes.
he must have bonded with you before he can have a bond with your daughter, obviously. So, and that's the right way for it to happen, obviously. Now, in terms of the issues that you've just talked about, like father there to protect the children, when a father who wants to take on those roles, because you said it was the father's duty. Now, this is something that I've very much struggled with, and it's only in latter times that I've understood the struggle, because when I became a father, I actually didn't think I was going to become a father, because in all honesty, I was just having relationships with females, and then it would last a certain time, and then I'd go to another one, and then another one, and then I mean, there wasn't lots of them, because my first partner did last quite a long time, and I'm really thankful for that, because it kind of gave me a baseline for some good things, because there was a lot of good things to do with it. So it wasn't just one after the other. But after her, I believe that because I felt that I'd lost so much in that relationship, I did kind of bounce around a bit. So one of the things that I've really struggled with lately, not really struggling now, but
I'm so hot in here.
is the understanding.
It's so warm in here. I didn't realize. Yeah.
Sorry, I
Go
can't
on.
help you on a level. Um,
Go on. Go
well,
on.
I didn't, as I say, I didn't think I was going to be a father. So when I became a father, bang, this new me became this new person. And it really started the minute I held that little girl, yeah. And I'll never forget it because I most probably said this a million times in my mind and to other people. I might have even said it on video. My little baby girl, her head fitted perfectly into this hand here, and then the rest of the body fit just in this bit. And I was thinking to myself, it's perfect. You must fit that perfectly for a reason. And that was the night after I'd carried the mother in labor for a long time. It was a long drawn out labor. So when my daughter was born, the mother just flaked out and it was just me. And what the nurse did, she asked me to open my shirt and then she put the baby on my.
Yeah.
Listen, honestly, it was wonderful, but that was the first kind of birth of the father, really. Because even though the mother of my children was pregnant for these 9 months and so, you're not really a father at that point. You're just kind of doing this and rushing around. You think you're going to be a father, but so when that new person who was trying to develop himself as a father, because one of the things that I had with my father, he was not really around. He was in our lives and he lived in the same house, but in terms of, he was always out. He was either working or out.
Yeah, but that's what I call a present absent father, who's actually there, but he is pretty much absent as this father being,
Very
as
much
this masculine model in the family is not really available. So
not
you see where
available.
things come from. I rarely talk to a father who is so into these things and doesn't have some issue with the father figure as well. It's
Of
very
course.
telling.
Well, you know what?
Yeah.
I used to, my dad, as I say, he used to come in after doing a long work, and then he'd get food, and then he'd say the same thing. I'm not going to be here right now. And every time as a little boy, I'd ask him, Dad, can I come? And he used to say this, next time. And then I'd ask
Mm,
him. Now I remember the actual time when I heard those words so much that I never asked him again. And looking back on it, it was quite a painful thing to switch off and say, no, well, if you don't want to take me, I'm never going to ask you again. So with my children, I always said I'd never do that. So many times, even if I was going to the shop and they'd be like, Dad, come, let me come. Even if I wasn't in the mood, I'd say, okay, come on. And then I'd enjoy it, because many times I think I'm just nipping to the shop. If I let them come, it's not going to be just a nip to the shop. It's going to turn into half an hour of them wanting to. But so those aspects of a father that I can no longer embody, really, what you kind of, where I'm at now and what resonated with what you said on and another part of the video that I saw was about, preparing that aspect of being a father for reconnecting with your daughter,
yes.
son. And I also remember you saying that a lot of fathers who come into that situation, who can connect with their daughter, are wanting to start telling the daughter, oh, this happened and this is this and this is that, which is totally wrong. They don't need that. They don't want that. They want something else.
Yes.
What is that something else that a father is supposed to embody?
Well, the first time when he's successful in actually being able to reconnect, to have this call, to have this appointment, she really needs you to pick her up right where I left her. So she doesn't really even need you to do anything at first. She needs you to be available now. So you can sit there and you have to talk to her. But what he should start asking is about her, because what she missed is a father being interested in her or being able to show that interest. So, which are two different things, actually. Many fathers say, oh, but I was interested. Yes, but your daughter didn't see it. So you have to picture how your daughter might have grown up. That's what I prepare fathers for a lot, giving them this knowledge and opening this door they need to go through to understand that what they expect to see or to happen is not necessarily according to her reality. That's why she might take it the wrong way, or she doesn't even have a receptor for that. So they first need to concentrate on her, because she is the child who couldn't make decisions, who was then without the father. So now she wants to be with the father, or sit there for a minute and see, okay, how do I feel here now that he's there? She needs to be able to get used to your presence and to see that now you're physically and emotionally available. So if she starts asking a lot of questions, great, then she's interested. Try to answer in an appropriate manner. But if she doesn't really ask, then you're supposed to start showing that you're interested. So where do you go to school? What do you like doing? What's your favorite color? You need to first start to have a flowing conversation where she's comfortable. And that can happen in the first meeting. That can happen after 3 weeks, because not every child, not every young lady is the same. So when a father goes there and then says, well, good that we could meet after 5 years, because now you have the chance to listen my story. Lucky you. No, she maybe doesn't care at all about your story. She's angry. She still needs to yell at you to let out all that stored up anger that made her an angry child sometimes. Or she still needs to be able to say, look, I felt very bad when kids always had their dads and I didn't. And if you then start with, yeah, but it wasn't my fault because your mom, never do that, because maybe she's so attached to her mom because it's the only reliable figure that she has. You cannot talk negatively about the only person she had to trust.
True.
So sometimes it's a very complex thing that many very caring, loving fathers really don't know. They're not aware of that it's very useful to do some preparation work for that. First, to tap into their own father identity again and decide what they're going to be like, because you can decide what kind of a dad you want to be from now on. And then you need to, be very open to learn that if you really don't prepare a few things and become aware of them, you can mess it all up and throw that chance away and lose more time and create more harm than good and be very disappointed. And you don't know when you will have the do this work for reconnection. It's something I enjoy very much, because my father tried to reconnect when I was 18 and he did everything wrong that he possibly could do wrong. So I really know how to tell a dad that these things are not working. And I feel their daughters very much before I know what they look like. I kind of have an intuitive line to that. So it's a very nice part of the work I do. Not all fathers are about reconnection. Some of them are alienated or partially there, but can't be more. And a lot of the time it starts with them. All the problems they see are often symptoms of what happens to them first. So we changing those dynamics, because let me be really honest. I know some fathers feel very triggered when I say it, but sometimes I tell them, if your ex-wife and people related to her and the family members from her side, if they all treat you with rudeness, without any respect, without any normal manners, it's because they know they can.
They know they can.
So they know they can in some way. Yeah. So what happens if you change your attitude from the inside out completely? And maybe you don't notice at first try, but when people start seeing, oh, this is not the person that I can spit on anymore, because something has changed, they will start acting in a different way, because you teach people how to treat you.
Very, very powerful. Now, I'm going to ask you a few, I don't know how long I've got, but I'm loving this. It's great. I might have to see you again in the future because it's so good.
We can do this. You can do this again whenever you want. I enjoyed very much. Thank you.
Thank you. But what I was going to say is this: I'm going to take it back to what I've done. Now, my journey, I was alienated, as I said, close to 6 years ago. So I've not seen my children in all that time. Now, I have used social media in order to, when I first started doing my YouTube channel, I started making videos about the family court process, about stuff that had happened, about stuff that mother had done. And even very lately, I've done it. For instance, the mother of my children recently made an order or applied to the court to prevent me from even speaking to my children should I see them out in public. So I spoke about this on YouTube. Now, it's been very, very healing for me to do that. A lot of people outside have got a lot of stuff back from it and you know, really got a lot. And while I've been doing this, I've tried to not come across as if I am attacking the mother or, you know, stuff like this. But I have to be conscious and think to myself, will my children think that I'm attacking their mother? You know, will they think
Yes.
that, you know, and it's really much a very much an issue with me. Now, I actually made videos to my children as well. And the last video I made, which I only posted yesterday, was a lesson to my children, because I basically said that there was a lot of things that I love doing as a father, and one of the things that I'm missing was to teach my children. So I used the allegory of the cave, Plato, and the allegory of the cave, where, you know, people
Yes, I know. Yeah, I
and
know.
so I told them this story. And in a way, obviously, I was likening that to what's happening in society, but I was also likening it to their situation and saying, you know, you have a reality now, but I'm hoping that you will come out of that reality soon and see the bigger picture. And what I'm really asking is this: even though I might think that I'm doing positive things and fighting to see my children, is it possible that I'm actually alienating my children further? Because all I want is to be with my children, really.
I know you do. Well, that is something I maybe cannot answer right now, like with a straight answer, because I'm missing information. So it's the classic case where I would say I would need a consultation with you like I normally do, because there I would ask certain questions very strategically to know really where you're at and what I would recommend in doing or what I would stop.
Okay.
I think it's very good for fathers to not hide the fact anymore that they don't see their kids, because so many fathers just pretend. When other people ask them about the kids, they just pretend that everything is fine, and
Yeah.
they do so for years because they're ashamed and they think maybe that it looks bad and people have a bad reaction. So it's good to say, no, I'm just not hiding it anymore. It's not everything is my fault, of course, because I want to be there. So I should be allowed to just say it, you know, and say how I feel. That's very positive, I think, and you should. But of course, you never know how your children, depending on the age also, can perceive that stuff that goes out public. So if you're not sure in some moments and you say, well, I don't know if maybe here I'm not doing something entirely positive regarding the outcome, and maybe I should do it differently. If something in your intuition already tells you that could be a problem, I would suggest you for now just stop.
Yeah.
And
Well,
rethink a little bit. But
yeah.
well, I'm willing to help. So if you want to go on a like strategic conversation with me, I would be happy to, because then maybe I can off camera somewhere else.
Well, you know, the thing is
um,
this, you know, some of the things that, obviously I told you stuff that I heard when you were speaking that I really resonated with and I loved, but there's been
yes,
stuff here as well that has really resonated with where I am. And I'm going to tell you this stuff so that, you know, you can give me your feedback and also educate people who are watching it on this. Because where I am now, what I try to talk to people about, as hairy-fairy as it will sound, is love. Because a lot of the times when I speak to alienated fathers, mothers too, but mainly fathers in this sense, yeah, they are very, very demoralized, like you say, the shame, and they're in this broken state, and they always seem to focus on what the mother has done to them. Okay.
of course,
Yeah.
yes,
Now,
big time.
I have also had a lot of stuff that the mother has done. Okay. But over a period of time, because I've been able to ride the waves of the she made like false allegations and stuff like this. And at the time when these were happening, very, very destructive. And a lot of the times I was fighting against those allegations in the family court rather than focusing on the children. But over a period of time, I've been able to come back to the bond that I have with my children. Now, I mentioned the dad who sent me a message earlier today. And one of the things I've not said to him, which I would love to say to him, is that he's in such a powerful position because he actually has contact. He's able to call his son. He's able to actually interact with his son.
That's great, yes.
Yeah, I find this with a lot of fathers who have, it's 1,000,000 times more than I've got, you know.
But they handle it the wrong way. They don't know the potential that it has, yes.
They handle it the wrong way. Now, this love thing that I feel blessed about is, over a period of time, I've been able to start focusing less on the mother and actually thinking and feeling about the bond I have with my children, the love I have with my children. Now,
that's it.
In practical ways as well, I will actually meditate sometimes, or when I'm going to sleep, I'll picture me meeting my children, hugging them. I'll picture times when the mother of my children actually said to me, or it was sent for the solicitor, that she was going to apply for this application so I wouldn't be able to speak to them. I wasn't necessarily in panic mode, but I thought, okay, the courts might do this because they seem to give the mother everything she wants. So I made a message, and it was called, "This might be the last message to my children." And the picture that I made for it was actually a picture of me sat like this. And then I superimposed 2 little pictures of my children from a video I had just here. So it kind of looks like I'm looking down at them. And I actually love the picture because it kind of symbolizes what I do internally. Because mentally, I am not actually alienated from my children anymore. I am in this physical place, but because I spend so much time kind of nurturing the bond between us, and I actually believe that that nurturing will actually bring my children back into my life, it has so much enriched me. So I would like to get your feedback on that and actually understand your process, because it doesn't, I can't say that it's the same what you're talking about, but it very much, what you're saying very much resonates with me, because you're talking about preparing a father who's not with his children.
Reconnection, yes.
Reconnection, you know.
I'm going to answer to this, and then I really need to wrap this up because we've been going on for long and I need to attend to some stuff at home.
No problem.
It's a shame because I would stay longer, but it's a bit getting stressy when I look at the clock.
No, I've loved every minute.
But the thing is,
I tell you what, before you wrap this up, I tell you what, yeah, this thing, when I turn it into the video, I might do it in 2, I don't know how long it is. It's going to be an amazing one, a brilliant one.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope it can help somebody. But I can answer this to finish this because it makes a lot of sense to finish. What you're actually doing is an exercise that I give to some fathers because I want them to visualize, so to create the loving, positive feelings again that can trigger different actions and attract different actions from their environment again. Because every time you create a new emotion, you create it with imagery where you're free to imagine what you want, and your brain accepts every metaphor and image and sound out there. That's why well-applied therapeutical hypnosis works so damn well. Yeah. I've been through it too. So what you're actually doing intuitively, because you just thought it feels good, it is good. It is good. And every time I work with a dad that is open to this kind of exercise, I give it to them for a certain period of time, and I tell them how to do it. I even give them some special brainwave stuff, to sounds that are engineered to stimulate your brainwaves and stuff, so it sets in better. Great, you know. So then, and sometimes they say, well, okay, and you think it's going to do something? And I say, look, we have to change from that frequency where you have a lot of low vibrations like worry and blame and the rage and the fear, and you have to get you into the frequencies where you can be higher and the vibrations are faster and higher and lighter too, where we get you into the serenity and the joy and the fun and pleasurable feelings of the visualization, because that creates feelings that we will need to take further action in the direction that we want to get the outcome that can match that desire that we have. And it's a process that can sound very complex, but it's actually quite amazing that you came to it on your own. And it has a lot to do that you know how sound works, and you know that sounds also trigger emotions. So
Very
it
much.
happens a lot that people that are in the creative field in some way can relate quite quickly to things that maybe other people wouldn't. So I need to help them come to that. But it's great. I mean, if you would be a client of mine, I would even direct that exercise in whole different ways to get you to even get more creative with it. All you can do with it, it's amazing. And yes, you need to focus on the bond. And every time I meet a dad who wants my help apparently, but the only thing he wants is to vent about his ex-wife all the time. And sometimes I let them talk, and then I say, you haven't talked about your daughter even once. I mean, what is happening there? Where is your focus? Where are you putting this precious energy that you have all the time? Yeah, but I need to beat her in court. And I say, well, yeah, but what has that to do with how your daughter is feeling? And sometimes it's very strange because they have lost the connection totally, not only with the child, but within themselves to that bond, because the father identity is damaged and very neglected and sometimes shut down a long time ago. So we need to work on the father identity again. And then comes this tapping into your own greatness thing. And there we start to trigger the emotions that match this dad that you are, even if you're not exercising your fatherhood, but you are this dad still, and nobody has the right to take this away from you because it's a natural right that you have. It's an identity. So there the process starts to redirect the focus, because if we don't do that, if they keep focused on one side, that's actually what they're busy with, not in rebonding with their daughters.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So it's good that you're busy and creative with rebonding. Doesn't matter if they're not there physically yet, but it's
Yeah.
a very good thing that you're doing, and I encourage you to do it even more.
Yeah.
And if you want a if you
so,
want a conversation to give you a few more tweaks there, I'm really willing to do that, of course.
well, definitely. And I'll thank you so much for even validating what I'm doing, because again, you know, when I've spoken to other fathers, I get the impression, or even mothers, I say these things and I get the impression that they're thinking, oh, there's no reality in that. There's no, you know, there's nothing that can really
Well,
come from that.
what do they know? So it's a very that's why I tell people, I think the work that I do, I get the feedback from coaches, from people that I know from social media. They always say it's such a rare thing to see a woman working on this, but also to really see a person focusing on such a specific thing. So they're always intrigued in what I do. And I say, look, I cannot really tell you because every coaching process with a dad looks different, because I customize the whole dynamic and the program and the material I create for that father in this situation. I don't reuse. Almost never I'm able to reuse any material that I write or that I record, because it is really worked. I work it for you, and I get the inspiration from you to create the tools you need. So it's really something that is a gift for you only. So if it works for you, it doesn't really matter if other people cannot even understand what you're doing, but this is a recipe that works for you. So it's perfectly fine, because the universe doesn't care if you sometimes can't even understand what you're doing, but the process works either way.
Either way. And it's working anyway, because when people are feeling resentment, when dads are feeling anger, when, you know, it's all energies that are not going to bring your child closer to you. And even if the
No.
child does come, you know, there's going to be that those barriers, those breakdowns, you know. So yeah, but I'm very conscious. And I do not want to take any more of your time because
I really need to go because I
I know,
have to attend to
I
very
know,
mundane
I know.
things like
It's okay.
dinner, you know,
It's
things in the
okay.
home.
And what I'm going to say is this: I have loved this, and I would love to do it again because where we've ended, I think could be
Please.
another, you know. And
Yes.
I won't do it before I've got this up, and it's, you know, I don't, like I say, I don't know how long it is, but listen, thank you for joining this Zoom
Welcome.
interview, and
Thank you for having me.
yeah, and thank you for giving so much knowledge to other people because they will find this very, very powerful and knowledgeable. Thank
Yes. And of course, if anybody's going to view this, if you really know a father that needs help, that desperately needs help, just tell them to come to my Instagram at
you. Will.
Jana Herde Coaching.
And
I know it's going to be there on,
it's
you
going
know,
to be
down below
when I
for
put it.
people.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Or
Yeah.
you go to my website. It's just janaherde.com. And there you
Don't
even
worry.
have a contact form with different time zones to pick from. If you say, I really need to talk to some person who might even, you know, listen without judgment, which is very important because I know it's rare to
Yeah.
to listen from the father's perspective, which is often not very popular and usual to find anywhere. So if you know somebody who needs to hear this, share the content, make
I
it
tell you
available
something,
to
I
people.
know a lot of people who need to hear this. A lot of people who need to get their head
That's it.
out of the family court war and back into
Yes.
the love of their children. Yeah. So yes.
Yes, because yeah, and trust me, people, even if you don't understand how it works, it doesn't matter. Um, Everything you can do that is from you taking responsibility of a dad to solve this issue is going to be more effective than going to court 3 times with a lawyer who can also not give you any guarantees that it will work. So
Yeah, and being
take the
financially drained.
responsibility back. That's it, and work with what you have now. And if you need help, well, there you have me to maybe orient you a bit. And next time I'm on, I can even give you the names of a few people that are also present on social media who actually specialize in helping dads to even defend themselves in court much more effectively. So
Well,
there is help.
maybe the next time we speak, we can go
Yes,
into the method that you use and stuff like this. You
yes,
know, give people an idea of how it can help them more. Because, like I say, from my point of view, trying to tell people what's working for me I might not be effective in conveying that. But
no, because every person is different. And I tell you one thing, I haven't had any client who's actually too interested in what I'm going to do exactly. What they always ask is, can you help me get a better result? Can you help me feel better? Can you help me learn, handle this? And I always say yes, unless I see that they have like a really unrealistic expectation that I can't do, then I say no, honestly, no. But they never seem to be really interested in how it's going to work, because what they want is a result and a better feeling and a better outcome. How you do it in the end is not really that important. You just need to be open to the process.
yeah,
So thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. We can do this whenever you want, and see you next time.
see you next time. Thank you so much, Jana. You're beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.